Welcome back, American Coin Hunter. In the world of American coins, there are certain years that quietly changed history without most people even realizing it. And one of the most mysterious, talked about, and emotionally charged years in the entire Lincoln Cent series is 1982, a year that looks ordinary at first glance, but hides a dramatic story of metal shortages, secret transitions, accidental mistakes, human error, machine failure, and coins that today spark wild excitement, heated debates, and unbelievable price claims that travel across the internet and collector communities like wildfire. When you hold a 1982 1-cent coin in your hand, you are not just holding a penny. You are holding a moment in time when the United States Mint was under intense pressure, when copper prices were rising so fast that the government feared it would soon cost more to make a penny than the penny itself, and when hurried decisions created a perfect storm of rare errors that collectors are still hunting for decades later. Before 1982, the Lincoln Cent was made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a solid, heavy coin with a familiar feel that Americans had known for generations. But by the early 1980s, inflation and global metal markets pushed copper prices dangerously high, forcing the mint to make a historic decision that would forever split the penny into two different worlds. In 1982 alone, pennies were struck in both the old copper composition and the new zinc-based composition, something that never happened before and never happened again in quite the same way. And this overlap opened the door to confusion, misidentification, and some of the most famous modern error coins in U.S. history. The simple act of weighing a 1982 penny can feel like opening a treasure chest, because weight is one of the most important clues that separates an ordinary coin worth 1 cent from a rare, transitional error that collectors dream about. The traditional copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams, while the newer zinc penny with a thin copper coating weighs about 2.5 grams, and that difference may seem small, but in the coin world it is massive. During the chaotic transition in 1982, mint workers were switching planchets, adjusting machines, changing dies, and racing against time, and in that confusion some coins were struck on the wrong metal, with the wrong dies, or in ways that were never supposed to happen. This is why the 1982 penny is one of the most studied coins by error specialists, because it is not just one coin, but an entire family of varieties, weights, and design details that must be examined closely, sometimes under magnification, sometimes on digital scales accurate to hundredths of a gram point. One of the most famous aspects of the 1982 penny story is the existence of both large date and small date designs in the same year, a detail that casual observers often miss completely. The shape of the numbers in the date, especially the size and curve of the two, can tell a trained eye whether the coin belongs to one variety or another, and when combined with the weight and metal composition, these design differences can multiply into several distinct types, each with its own rarity level and collector demand. In 1982, the Philadelphia Mint struck pennies without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint produced pennies with a small D mint symbol below the date. And both mints produced coins in both copper and zinc compositions, creating a complex web of possibilities that still confuses new collectors today. The coin symbol itself, the iconic Lincoln Memorial on the reverse and Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, remained the same in overall design, but subtle differences in strike quality, metal flow, and surface appearance can reveal whether a coin came from a rushed production line or a carefully adjusted press. The Lincoln Cent design in 1982 still carried the legacy of Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909, a design that by 1982 had already become one of the most recognized coin images in the world. Lincoln's calm expression, the sharp lines of his coat, and the familiar inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" all appear unchanged. Yet collectors know that the metal beneath that image tells a completely different story. On copper pennies, the sound when dropped on a hard surface is different. The color over time ages into a deep brown or reddish tone, and the weight feels reassuringly solid. While zinc pennies often show bubbling, corrosion, or peeling of the thin copper plating, especially after decades of circulation. These physical clues have become part of the legend of the 1982 penny, turning everyday change into a potential discovery that anyone could make just by paying attention. Among all the varieties, the most talked about and controversial error associated with the 1982 penny is the transitional error where a small date design was struck on a copper planchet, something that many experts believe should not officially exist in large numbers. For years, collectors searched, debated, argued, and tested coins to prove whether such a combination was real, and when authenticated examples finally surfaced, the excitement was intense. These coins are rare, not because millions were made, but because only a tiny number escaped the mint during a narrow window when old planchets and new dies overlapped. Stories circulate in coin forums about people finding such coins in rolls, inherited collections, or even pocket change decades after they were minted, fueling the belief that treasures could still be out there waiting to be found. The market value of 1,982 penny errors ranges dramatically, from just a few dollars for common varieties to thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars for authenticated rare errors in high condition. When you hear headlines or social media posts claiming values in the hundreds of millions of dollars, those claims are usually tied to sensational interpretations, theoretical rarity, or the combined value of all examples if a coin were to become uniquely important in the market. In some corners of the internet, collectors and speculators talk about the 1982 transitional error penny as if it were a modern holy grail, suggesting that if only one perfect example were discovered or certified as unique, bidding wars among elite collectors could push prices into unimaginable territory. Whether these extreme numbers are realistic or not, they play a powerful role in keeping the legend alive and drawing new eyes to the humble penny. As the years passed after 1982, the ordinary penny slowly faded from daily attention. Yet among serious collectors, the fascination only grew stronger because the more time that passed, the clearer it became that this single year represented a turning point that would never be repeated in quite the same way again. The United States Mint had effectively ended the era of the solid copper cent, replacing it with a cheaper zinc core plated with copper. And while that decision solved an economic problem, it created a legacy of confusion and error that continues to ripple through the hobby. Many people do not realize that the change was not clean or instant, and that during 1982 multiple production runs overlapped, sometimes with old copper planchets still loaded into hoppers, while new zinc planchets were already being struck on nearby presses. And this overlap is exactly where the most valuable mistakes were born. One of the most important details that collectors focus on is the exact weight of the coin, because weight is often the first and most reliable indicator of composition. A genuine copper 1982 penny will weigh around 3.11 grams, sometimes slightly more or less due to wear, while a zinc penny will weigh about 2.5 grams. And this difference is so critical that experienced collectors carry pocket scales or keep digital scales at home specifically for this purpose. What makes the story even more dramatic is that some coins appear visually identical at first glance, yet their weight reveals a completely different reality, turning what looks like a common cent into a potentially rare and desirable error. This has led to countless stories of people rechecking their change, digging through old jars, and even buying rolls from banks in the hope that a heavy copper coin from late 1982 might still be hiding among them. Beyond weight, the design details of the date itself play a crucial role, especially the difference between large date and small date varieties. The small date has a more delicate appearance, with the numbers appearing thinner and more refined, while the large date looks bolder and slightly more uneven, particularly in the shape of the two, which on the small date curves more smoothly and has a sharper point at the base. These differences might seem minor, but in the world of coin collecting they are everything, because when a small date design appears on a copper planchet, the result is one of the most sought-after modern era coins in the United States. Authentication of such coins often requires professional grading services, because the stakes are high and the difference between genuine rarity and wishful thinking can mean thousands of dollars. The Denver Mint plays a particularly interesting role in the 1982 penny saga because it produced fewer pennies overall than the Philadelphia Mint, and its production runs show subtle differences in quality and variety. Coins bearing the D Mint mark from 1982 exist in both copper and zinc compositions, but certain combinations are far rarer than others, and this has led to intense competition among collectors who specialize in Denver issues. Some collectors believe that specific presses or shifts at the Denver Mint were responsible for clusters of errors, including off-center strikes, weak strikes, and even doubled die varieties that add another layer of complexity to an already complicated year. These errors are not always dramatic or easy to spot, which means that many may still be sitting unnoticed in collections or forgotten rolls. The concept of a coin error itself is fascinating because it represents a breakdown in a system designed for precision and uniformity. In 1982, the pressure to keep costs down and maintain production levels meant that the mint was operating under unusual stress, and when systems are stressed, mistakes happen. Dies wear out faster, planchets get mixed, and quality control can slip just enough for rare anomalies to escape into circulation. Each error coin is like a fingerprint of that moment, a physical record of a small failure that somehow survived long enough to reach the hands of collectors decades later. Market value is where the story becomes even more dramatic, because the price of 1982 penny errors has not followed a simple or predictable path. Early on, many collectors dismissed these coins as curiosities rather than serious investments. But as awareness grew and authenticated examples began to appear at auctions, prices started to climb. A rare 1982 small-date copper penny, once confirmed and graded, has sold for thousands of dollars, and each new sale sets a benchmark that influences future expectations. At the extreme end of speculation, some enthusiasts talk about hypothetical scenarios in which a unique or perfectly preserved example could attract global attention, driving bids into the realm of multi-million-dollar valuations, especially if wealthy collectors or institutions decided that owning such a coin was a matter of prestige rather than profit. The idea of a market current value reaching numbers like $279 million often arises not from a single sale, but from aggregated speculation, media exaggeration, and the way information spreads online. When people see headlines or videos suggesting astronomical values, they imagine a future where the rarest 1982 penny becomes a symbol of the end of copper coinage in America, a one-of-a-kind artifact that represents a fundamental shift in monetary history. Whether or not such a price will ever be realized, the belief itself fuels demand, keeps interest alive, and encourages more people to look closely at their coins, which in turn brings more examples to light and deepens our understanding of what truly exists. History adds another powerful dimension to the 1982 penny because it connects everyday objects to broader economic forces. The early 1980s were marked by inflation, changing global markets, and a sense that traditional materials and systems were becoming too expensive to maintain. The decision to change the penny's composition was not just about saving a few cents per coin, but about acknowledging a new economic reality, and the coins themselves became silent witnesses to that transition. Holding a 1982 penny today is like holding a small piece of that history, a reminder that even the smallest units of currency are shaped by forces far beyond their face value. Collectors often speak about the emotional connection they feel when studying these coins, because each one carries a story of survival and chance. A penny that could have been melted, lost, or corroded instead survived long enough to be examined, weighed, and appreciated, and in some cases, valued far beyond its humble origins. This emotional aspect is one of the reasons why the 1982 penny continues to inspire long discussions, heated arguments, and passionate searches, because it represents the possibility that history, value, and mystery can coexist in the palm of your hand as time goes on and more zinc pennies succumb to corrosion while copper examples age more gracefully. The balance of surviving coins may shift, potentially increasing the relative scarcity of certain varieties. This possibility adds another layer of intrigue to the market, as collectors speculate not only on what is rare today, but on what might become rare tomorrow. The story of the 1982 penny is still being written, shaped by new discoveries, changing market conditions, and the enduring human desire to find meaning and value in the most unexpected places. And with each passing year, the legend grows deeper and more compelling. As collectors dug deeper into the mystery of the 1982 penny, attention began to shift from the most obvious varieties to the subtle, almost invisible errors that require patience, experience, and sometimes a bit of luck to identify. These include die cracks that run like lightning across Lincoln's portrait, cuts where pieces of the die broke away, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin, and weak strikes where parts of the design failed to fully form because of worn or misaligned dies. In isolation, many of these errors might not seem extraordinary, but when they appear on a 1982 penny, especially one with a rare composition or date style, their value and significance can multiply dramatically. This combination of factors is what turns the 1982 penny into a deep and endlessly fascinating field of study rather than a single collectible item. The reverse side of the coin, featuring the Lincoln Memorial, also holds important clues that collectors examine carefully. The memorial design, used from 1959 to 2008, is rich in fine lines and architectural details, and any weakness or doubling in these areas can signal a potential error. Some 1982 pennies show signs of doubled dies on the reverse, where the inscriptions or the columns of the memorial appear slightly doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process. These doubled dies are different from machine doubling, which is far more common and less valuable, and distinguishing between the two requires experience and careful examination. When a true doubled die is confirmed on a 1982 penny, it adds another layer of rarity and desirability, especially if the coin already belongs to a scarce composition and date combination. Another intriguing aspect of the 1982 penny story is the role of human behavior in shaping the survival rate of different varieties. When news spread that copper pennies might be worth more than face value because of their metal content, many people began hoarding older cents, pulling them out of circulation and storing them away. This behavior likely affected the number of copper 1982 pennies that remain available today, as some were saved intentionally while others continued circulating and suffered wear. At the same time, zinc pennies, which were perceived as less valuable, often remained in circulation longer and were more exposed to damage, corrosion, and loss. This uneven pattern of survival adds complexity to the market because rarity is not just about how many coins were minted, but how many survived in collectible condition. The idea of coin symbols goes beyond the visible designs and inscriptions, touching on the deeper symbolism of money itself. The penny, bearing the image of Abraham Lincoln, represents ideals of unity, perseverance, and humility, and in 1982, these symbolic meanings took on new dimensions as the coin itself became a subject of debate and change. The transition from copper to zinc was not just a technical adjustment, but a symbolic shift away from tradition, and some collectors view the 1982 penny as the physical embodiment of that shift. This symbolic weight contributes to the fascination and helps explain why collectors are willing to spend significant sums to own a small piece of this history. Stories of discovery play a huge role in keeping the legend of the 1982 penny alive. There are accounts of people finding rare varieties in unexpected places, such as old coffee cans filled with change, inherited collections from relatives who never considered themselves collectors, or rolls of pennies purchased on a whim from a local bank. Each story reinforces the idea that valuable coins are not limited to museums or high-end auctions, but can still be found by ordinary people who take the time to look closely. These narratives spread quickly online, inspiring others to start searching and contributing to a sense of shared adventure within the collecting community. Auction results, when they occur, often send shockwaves through the market. A single high-profile sale of a rare 1982 penny can reset expectations, causing prices for similar coins to rise as collectors rush to secure examples before values climb even higher. At the same time, these sales spark debates about grading standards, authenticity, and whether prices are being driven by genuine rarity or by hype and speculation. The tension between these perspectives is a constant undercurrent in the market, and it adds drama to every new discovery and every new listing. The role of professional grading services cannot be overstated in this environment, because third-party authentication provides a level of trust that is essential when large sums of money are involved. A 1982 penny that might be dismissed as ordinary in raw condition can become highly desirable once it is certified, encapsulated, and labeled with a specific variety and grade. This process not only protects the coin, but also solidifies its place in the market, making it easier to buy, sell, and compare with other examples. However, the cost of grading also introduces risk, because not every submitted coin turns out to be rare or valuable. and collectors must weigh the potential reward against the expense. As discussions about extreme valuations like hundreds of millions of dollars continue to circulate, they often reflect a broader fascination with modern rarities and the idea that history is still being made in our own lifetime. Unlike ancient coins or classic rarities that are locked into the past, the 1982 penny feels close and accessible, something that could still be found and verified today. This sense of immediacy fuels speculation and imagination, encouraging people to think not just about what the coin is worth now, but what it could represent in the future as a symbol of a pivotal moment in American monetary history. The longer collectors study the 1982 penny, the more they realize that its story cannot be reduced to a single number or a single variety. It is a living narrative shaped by economics, technology, human error, and cultural meaning, and each new discovery adds another chapter. Whether examined under a microscope, discussed in online forums, or showcased in auction catalogs, the 1982 penny continues to captivate because it reminds us that even the smallest objects can carry immense significance, and that value is often found not in what something is made of, but in the stories it tells and the questions it inspires. As interest continued to grow, the 1982 penny began to occupy a unique space in modern coin collecting where education, speculation, and obsession all intersect. What makes this year especially powerful is that it invites participation from anyone, not just seasoned experts with access to rare collections, because the basic tools needed to begin are simple: a scale, a magnifying glass, and patience. This accessibility transformed the 1982 penny into a gateway coin, drawing new collectors into the hobby and encouraging them to learn the fundamentals of numismatics through hands-on discovery rather than textbooks or museums. Over time, many collectors have said that their first serious experience with coin collecting began with weighing and examining 1982 pennies. The concept of errors expanded even further as collectors identified off-metal strikes, where a penny was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or composition. While extremely rare, such errors ignite enormous excitement because they represent multiple failures happening at once, from planchet selection to press operation. In the context of 1982, when metal transitions were already causing confusion, the possibility of off-metal errors feels more plausible, and every new claim or discovery is scrutinized intensely. Even when such claims turn out to be false, the process of investigation strengthens the collective knowledge of the community and refines the criteria used to identify genuine errors. Surface characteristics also became a major area of study, especially on zinc pennies, which are far more prone to environmental damage than their copper counterparts. The thin copper plating on zinc cents can bubble, crack, or peel, creating unusual textures that some inexperienced collectors mistake for errors. Learning to distinguish between post-mint damage and true mint errors is a critical skill, and the 1982 penny serves as an ideal teaching tool because it displays both phenomena so clearly. This educational aspect reinforces the idea that value is not just about rarity, but about understanding and correctly interpreting what you see. As more information became available through books, online articles, and video content, the mythology surrounding the 1982 penny grew richer and more complex. Some narratives emphasize the chaos inside the mint during the transition, imagining hurried workers and machines pushed beyond their limits, while others focused on the idea of hidden treasures waiting to be discovered decades later. These stories, whether fully accurate or partially embellished, add emotional weight and help explain why the 1982 penny continues to capture attention long after its release. In a world saturated with information, the enduring appeal of this coin suggests that people are drawn not just to facts, but to stories that blend history, mystery, and the promise of discovery. The financial aspect of collecting inevitably brings both hope and controversy. When discussions turn to extreme valuations, such as claims of hundreds of millions of dollars, reactions range from excitement to skepticism. Some collectors argue that no penny could realistically achieve such a price, pointing to historical auction records and market fundamentals, while others counter that unprecedented sales have happened before in the world of collectibles, driven by scarcity, symbolism, and competition among wealthy buyers. The 1982 penny sits at the center of this debate, serving as a canvas onto which people project their beliefs about value, rarity, and the future of collecting. Market behavior around the 1982 penny also reflects broader trends in how collectibles are bought and sold in the digital age. Online marketplaces allow coins to reach global audiences instantly, but they also create environments where misinformation can spread just as quickly. Photos can be misleading, descriptions exaggerated, and prices inflated, making it essential for collectors to develop critical thinking skills. The 1982 penny, with its many varieties and subtle differences, highlights both the opportunities and risks of modern collecting, reminding participants that knowledge is the most valuable asset they can possess. The idea of condition plays a crucial role in determining value, because even the rarest variety can be significantly less valuable if it shows heavy wear, corrosion, or damage. For 1982 pennies, high-grade examples are especially prized because many coins from that year circulated heavily or suffered from the vulnerabilities of zinc composition. Finding a well-preserved example, especially one with a rare error or composition, is like discovering a time capsule that has somehow escaped decades of wear and tear. These coins often become centerpieces of collections, not just for their potential monetary value, but for what they represent. As collectors reflect on why the 1982 penny resonates so strongly, many point to its role as a bridge between past and present. It marks the end of an era of traditional coinage while ushering in a new phase defined by cost efficiency and material compromise. This dual identity gives the coin a sense of tension and drama that few other modern coins possess. It is both familiar and different, ordinary and extraordinary, common and rare, depending on how closely you look and what questions you ask. The ongoing search for new varieties and errors ensures that the story of the 1982 penny is far from complete. Each year, new claims emerge, some confirmed, others debunked, but all contributing to the evolving narrative. This constant state of discovery keeps the community engaged and ensures that the coin remains relevant, even as newer generations encounter it for the first time. In this way, the 1982 penny is not just a relic of the past, but a living subject of study, continuously reshaped by curiosity, debate, and the enduring human desire to uncover hidden value in the most unexpected places. With every passing decade, the 1982 penny seems to gain more gravity, not because new pennies are being made like it, but because time itself is quietly sorting the ordinary from the extraordinary. Coins that once passed through countless hands are disappearing, lost, damaged, melted, or forgotten, and this natural thinning of the population gives surviving examples a kind of quiet power. Collectors often say that the true rarity of a coin is not decided at the moment it is minted, but years later, after circulation, neglect, and chance have taken their toll, and the 1982 penny fits this idea perfectly. What was once produced in staggering numbers now exists in far smaller quantities in collectible condition, especially when specific varieties and errors are considered. The psychological pull of the 1982 penny is also rooted in its accessibility, because unlike ancient gold coins or famous rarities locked away in museums, this coin still feels close to everyday life. Many people alive today remember using these pennies in daily transactions, dropping them into jars, feeding them into vending machines, or ignoring them altogether as nearly worthless. That familiarity creates a powerful contrast when those same coins are suddenly discussed as potential treasures, capable of commanding prices that seem wildly disproportionate to their humble appearance. This contrast fuels fascination and keeps the conversation alive, because it challenges assumptions about value and worth. The weight difference between copper and zinc pennies becomes almost symbolic in this context, representing a divide between perceived quality and actual cost. The heavier copper coins feel more substantial, more permanent, while the lighter zinc coins feel fragile by comparison, prone to corrosion and decay. This physical difference reinforces the narrative of loss and transition, making the copper 1982 pennies feel like survivors of a bygone era. Collectors who handle both types often describe an almost emotional reaction, as if the copper coins carry a sense of authenticity that the zinc coins lack. Even though both are official products of the same mint in the same year, stories continue to circulate about dramatic finds that reignite interest and speculation. Someone claims to have discovered a small date copper penny in pristine condition. Another person posts images of an unusual error that sparks debate across forums and comment sections, and each claim draws more eyes to the subject. Even when such stories are later questioned or disproven, they serve a purpose by keeping the 1982 penny in the public consciousness and encouraging others to look more closely at their own coins. This cycle of claim, investigation, and discussion is a defining feature of modern numismatics, and the 1982 penny sits at its center. The role of technology in shaping this narrative cannot be ignored, because digital scales, high-resolution cameras, and online communities have democratized access to information and tools that were once limited to experts. A collector no longer needs to rely solely on printed guides or local clubs to learn about varieties and errors. Instead, they can compare images, share data, and receive feedback from collectors around the world in real time. This constant exchange accelerates discovery, but also amplifies hype, making it essential for collectors to balance enthusiasm with critical analysis. The 1982 penny thrives in this environment because it offers endless opportunities for comparison, debate, and learning. Market behavior reflects this tension between knowledge and speculation. Prices can fluctuate dramatically based on a single auction result, a viral video, or a widely shared post, creating waves of excitement that ripple through the collecting community. Some collectors see these fluctuations as opportunities, while others view them as warnings, signs that emotion rather than fundamentals may be driving the market. The 1982 penny becomes a case study in how value is constructed, negotiated, and sometimes exaggerated, revealing as much about human behavior as about metal and minting. The idea of a market current value reaching extraordinary figures like $279 million often functions more as a symbol than a literal expectation. It represents the ultimate triumph of rarity and story over face value, the notion that a simple object can transcend its original purpose and become a cultural icon. In this sense, the 1982 penny is less about whether such a price will ever be achieved and more about why people are willing to imagine it. That imagination speaks to a deep desire for meaning, for the belief that history and fortune can intersect in the most unlikely ways. Condition, once again, plays a decisive role in shaping these dreams. A worn, corroded coin may still hold historical interest, but it is the sharp, well-preserved examples that capture attention and command respect. For 1982 pennies, this is particularly challenging because many zinc coins deteriorated quickly, making high-grade survivors relatively scarce. When such a coin also displays a rare error or composition, it becomes a convergence of factors that collectors find irresistible, a tangible representation of chance and preservation. The long-term outlook for the 1982 penny remains a topic of debate, with some collectors predicting steady appreciation driven by historical significance and shrinking supply, while others caution that enthusiasm may cool as new generations focus on different areas of collecting. Yet, even skeptics acknowledge that the 1982 penny occupies a unique niche, defined by a once-in-a-century transition and a complex web of varieties that continues to invite study. This uniqueness gives the coin resilience, allowing it to remain relevant even as trends shift. Ultimately, the enduring appeal of the 1982 penny lies in its ability to transform perception. It invites people to slow down, to look closely, and to question assumptions about what is ordinary and what is valuable. In doing so, it turns a small piece of copper or zinc into a gateway to history, economics, and human curiosity, ensuring that its story will continue to be told, debated, and expanded for years to come. As the story finally reaches its end, the 1982 penny stands not as a simple conclusion, but as an open door, a reminder that value is never fixed and history is never truly finished. What began as a response to rising metal costs evolved into one of the most fascinating chapters in modern American coinage, a chapter written not only by mint officials and machines, but by chance, error, and the curiosity of countless individuals who refused to see a penny as just a penny. Decades later, these small coins continue to spark imagination because they prove that importance is not measured by size or face value, but by context, timing, and survival. The idea that a coin struck in enormous numbers could still contain hidden rarities challenges the assumption that scarcity must be planned or intentional. In the case of the 1982 penny, scarcity emerged accidentally, born from a rushed transition and imperfect systems. That accidental nature is what gives the coin its power, because it suggests that history leaves behind unexpected traces, waiting for someone patient enough to notice them. Every collector who weighs a penny, studies a date, or examines a surface is participating in that ongoing discovery, adding another layer to a story that refuses to settle into the past. Whether or not the most extreme market values ever become reality, the conversation itself has already changed how people look at everyday objects. The notion of a market current value reaching figures like $279 million may live more in imagination than in auction catalogs, but imagination has always played a role in collecting. It fuels passion, drives research, and keeps attention focused on objects that might otherwise be ignored. In that sense, the 1982 penny has already achieved something remarkable, transforming from a near-worthless unit of change into a symbol of possibility and debate. The weight of the coin, the metal beneath its surface, the familiar image of Lincoln, and the quiet presence of the memorial on the reverse all come together to form a bridge between eras. One side looks back to the long tradition of copper coinage, solid and enduring, while the other points forward to a new age of cost efficiency and compromise. Holding a 1982 penny is like holding that moment of balance, when the past and future briefly overlapped before moving on in separate directions. For some, the journey ends with knowledge gained and curiosity satisfied, while for others it sparks a lifelong interest in coins, history, and the hidden stories embedded in everyday life. Jars of change are no longer just clutter, rolls of pennies are no longer boring, and the smallest details suddenly matter. That shift in perspective may be the greatest value the 1982 penny offers, far beyond any dollar figure attached to it. In the end, the true worth of the 1982 penny lies not only in rare errors, unusual weights, or speculative prices, but in what it represents, a reminder that history often hides in plain sight, that mistakes can become treasures, and that something overlooked today may be celebrated tomorrow. As long as people continue to search, to question, and to believe that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories, the legend of the 1982 penny will never truly end. It will simply keep circulating, quietly, from hand to hand, waiting for the next person who decides to look a little closer.